I'm 27 and I'm about to turn 28 next month, and if there's one word I can use to describe my 20s so far, it would be contradictory. This is the age where there's things that you want to tick off and you feel like this is the time to do it while you can. At the same time, we need to start putting things in place to live the future we want while we can. For me and a lot of people I've spoke to, we spent our 20s feeling lost, confused, always feeling like we're behind, feeling lonely, and also feeling like we're running out of time. We're going to be talking about the real reason why we actually feel like this and how to turn things around, because I'm telling you, I spent the first half of my 20s constantly second guessing myself. When I got to like age 25, 26, I was like, this isn't it, this isn't life. I cannot live my life second guessing every single step I take. And the first thing for you to know is that it's not your fault you feel like this. Society we live in is literally based off of our feelings of inadequacy. Everything we see in the media, everything that is being sold and shoved down our throats in subliminal messaging and very outward messaging as well, is because they want us to feel less than. They want us to feel like there's always more to have, there's always more that we need to get to another level of life, or to get to another level of feeling secure in life, or feeling safe in life, belonged, loved, admired. Society is also obsessed with the idea that we should peak in our youth. When is the last time you saw a headline saying 50-year-old millionaire that spent their whole entire lives working and turned it around in their 50s has changed their lives? We never see that. Every day it's always a new message saying younger is better, younger is in. If that's how we're being programmed, as well as the idea that there's always more to have, why would we not feel lost? Why would we not feel confused? You might know in your heart of hearts that you're not where you want to be, that there is more you can be doing. I love working towards the highest version of myself. I love constantly working on myself, but we need to make that distinction between healthy growth from a place of wanting to become the best version of yourself out of a place of love, and also growth because you despise where you are, coming from a place of resentment of who you currently are, and that is just not productive. The distinction between healthy growth from a place of love and growth from a place of resentment is going to be your biggest key in terms of turning things around. I feel like we've been sold this idea of self-love in a way where we now start to feel guilty if we haven't achieved it. That's where like the whole self-help industry can get really toxic, because you start to now feel behind in your journey of becoming not behind. What I had to realize about self-love is we didn't come into this world with self-love. No, we came into this world craving love. We came into this world dependent on love in the form of care, in the form of being looked after and nurtured. We also have become used to, most of the time up until our 20s, having a very clear path for us. We were in these communities of school, in these communities of maybe extracurricular activities you did at school. Everyone was on the same path. Even if you didn't get the same grades and stuff, most people were kind of moving at a similar pace. All of a sudden, everyone is left with their devices to figure it out in their own time, in their own way, and we're all like at different levels, all at different paces. The herd mentality is literally just one of the human mechanisms of safety, and we don't have that anymore. So just give yourself the grace. We weren't born with self-love. We weren't born with knowing how to figure things out. Like, this is where you're going to have healthy growth, when you give yourself that space and grace to realize you're starting from scratch. Think of today as day zero. Everything you're doing, just think about who are you actually doing it for? Whose race are you running? The second you start trying to run that race of proving that you're not inadequate, proving that you can reach this cut-off point that someone else has given to you, you have automatically lost that race as soon as you stepped on the track, because that is a race of constant comparison, which is literally the number one form of bondage. Focus on the freedom that you gain when you do not compare yourself. That is how I see self-love. Self-love to me is not comparing myself. Self-love to me is just constantly working on understanding myself, because I be doing things and thinking things and saying things that I don't even get myself. So I'm like, how am I looking left and right and all around me when I don't even get myself? When am I trying to understand, read other people's minds, try to guess that, oh, that person's like this, that person does this because they're that. I don't even know what I do things. This is the number one form of freedom, especially in our 20s. If you have that confidence, that posturing yourself, that I am who I am, and just working on understanding her or him, then you're going to be on track for running the race that is truly meant for you. Another important distinction, have you thought about the difference between important and urgent? Having that constant feeling that time is running out is gonna make us feel like everything is urgent, and then we're gonna start moving from desperate energy. I don't know about you, but I personally don't have any experience of desperation doing anything good for me. I came across this concept by a creator called Dan Koe, and it's called the anti-vision. As much as crystallizing exactly the future and the person you want to become, sometimes it can be really helpful to also crystallize who you don't want to become. Think about everything you're doing now, all the thoughts and beliefs you have, the way that you're moving, the habits and routines you have as a result of those thoughts and beliefs, and think about where you'll end up in 20 years. Think about what it will be like if you keep running a race that isn't meant for you. How will you feel? What kind of life will you be living? Who will you resent? Get that crystal clear. And for me, I looked at that and I could see I was running a race with a very anticlimactic finish line. I've always been a very academic person. I've constantly been told by teachers and family members, you'll make such a great lawyer, you'll make such a great banker, like all these different career paths. That was very much the typical route for someone that's academic. And so I kind of just went with the motion. I went with those motions up until about 2019, where I started to realize that there were people out there doing really cool stuff, really creative stuff that I was interested in, I was curious about, but I didn't feel like I should go for it. But then when I thought about why I shouldn't go for it, I couldn't think of a solid reason beyond this isn't the path that I've been told I should take. And that's when I was just like, is that how I'm gonna live my life? Is that how I'm gonna live my life, just being told what to do with no reason why that's the way to go? As I started to explore my curiosity and try new things, it just unlocked a whole new level of life in every single way. If I was still running another person's race, I wouldn't have been able to have that experience. Imagine there was an Olympic race, there were literally 2 different racetracks. You're running on one and everyone else is running on another one. As you're running on your racetrack, you're watching them on the next racetrack to decide whether to speed up or slow down. They're not even on the same track as you. You don't even know where their finish line was. You don't even know where their start line was. You don't even know if they're running 200 meters or 1,000 meters. There are so many unknowns when you're on a different track, but that is literally how we live our lives. Stage 1 was for me to realize that I'm running my own race, but stage 2 was when I realized that I'm not even running a race in the first place. If I see it as a race, there's no way to not feel like you're running out of time, and there's no way to not have some sort of desperate energy manifest itself in some way, shape or form. This stage is when you get to start afresh. This stage is when you get to decide to live a life that actually excites you. And these are the 4 steps I took to turn things around. Purpose is something you've probably heard being thrown around here, there and everywhere. And I used to be so crippled with the idea, like, how do you discover your purpose? How do you know you have this one thing that you're made for, that you're built for? And if you don't do it, then you haven't lived life on purpose. I've genuinely studied this in so much depth because it sounds so important, but there was never really anything solid I can find as to where you find this out. So all I could personally do was to go to my source of truth, which is the Bible. The people in the Bible that were living in their purpose, they were using their gifts. There are gifts you have that come more naturally to you than most people. They bless other people in a way where you don't even have to try. It doesn't have to be a talent. A gift could be being a good listener. A gift could be giving good advice. A gift could be speaking. A gift could be communicating in a written format. It took me a long time to realize that one of my greatest gifts is my ability to learn, my ability to research. And I used to be so crippled by this exercise because I felt like I didn't have gifts. People always say, like, ask the people around you, what are you good at? And even the people around me would be like, you're just smart. And I'm like, that's not a gift. But I realized that I'm not just smart, I'm just good at learning. It's not a race. Every day is just a new chance to learn more about yourself. The same way you do with dating, every single day you're gonna learn something new about what sets a person off, what makes them tick. That is how we need to treat ourselves. When you lean on your unfair advantage, you will be able to move mountains. You will be able to be naturally self-assured. You won't have to be searching how to be confident. You won't have to be talking to yourself in the mirror. You're just gonna move naturally because you are doing things that come to you without force. The next stage is your creativity. Again, I used to feel like I'm not creative. I thought creative people were the really artsy type, what we kind of normally associate creativity with. I literally saw this tweet this morning about how creatives are just people that wear baggy trousers, but that is not the kind of creativity we're talking about. Creativity is literally just the ability to create something that wasn't there before. We are made in God's image. God is the ultimate creator. I believe God has put an element and an aspect of his creativity in absolutely everyone. We've got to continually work on identifying our gifts, and then being a good steward of our gifts is getting creative with different ways to apply that and deliver value to people around that. We're just gonna see things move and shift in a way that is not forced, in a way that's not so formulaic. What I do not like about the self-help manifestation space is everyone's so formulaic. They're like, I need to say I'm a lucky girl 10 times, looking to the left, and then say I am wealthy and abundant 10 times, looking to the right. If that was the case, how come people that don't apply that stuff and don't do that stuff are still able to move mountains, still able to thrive? And even though I do think there can be a time and a space for that more formulaic, like scripting and journaling and kind of saying affirmations to yourself in the mirror. I did a whole video about reprogramming your subconscious mind. All you're doing with those things is just changing the way you think and believe. It means you're programming yourself with the thoughts that make yourself worthy of doing this work, worthy of caring enough about yourself to love yourself, caring enough about yourself to understand yourself. Everything is always one piece of a greater puzzle, and the more you start to work on these different variables, the more everything will just make sense and flow, as opposed to being so, oh, I didn't do my morning routine, I'm gonna not manifest today. That's not how it works. Something my coach always says is, with everything, use it, but don't let it use you. The same media and external messages that I said can program us to think really negatively about ourselves, that we can use that same social media to find positive role models, find different ways of learning how to steward our gifts. Another gift I realized I have is writing. I always loved writing. I've always thrived in writing. So now I'm trying to learn how to be a better writer. There are so many good educational resources about how to be a better writer in so many different formats. I'm using the social media that's trying to use me to become a pawn of this idea that I should peak in my youth. I'm gonna make it work for me instead of me working for it. And number 3 is learning. Learning is not knowing, learning is applying. One of my favorite definitions of learning is by someone called Alex Hormozy, and he says that you haven't really learned something if you're met with the same condition and nothing has changed. That's not a bad thing. It's just being able to have that conversation with yourself to realize that, oh, okay, so I still haven't learned it. Maybe I need to learn it in a different way. Maybe I need to keep practicing. You haven't learned the thing you're trying to learn until your actions change when you're met with the same condition. So start actioning the things you've learned. And I've actually made my newsletter all around this. The things I'm learning, this is the action you can actually apply to it this week, so that you're forced to actually action the things you're learning. And another way I do this is actually making notes on the things I'm learning. And the best way to make notes is not writing what you've learned, but writing what you thought of as a result of what you learned, because that is your brain naturally trying to apply it. But normally we just self-sabotage. We don't actually act on it. When you write it down, it's a lot easier to make sure you put these things in place. I use this Notion template where I make notes and I also put action items based on the things I've learned, and it's helped me so much. As soon as you join my newsletter, which is completely free, you also get this Notion template. Let me know how you find it, because genuinely it's helped me so much. Then finally, it's our habits. We need to put habits in place to keep stewarding these gifts, and we also need to put habits in place to stop self-sabotaging. Self-sabotage creeps up in mysterious ways, but it's your brain trying to keep you safe, trying to keep you in your familiarity zone. But that familiarity zone, as we've established, is the place that has us feeling stuck, confused, feeling like we're constantly running behind in life and having us running a race that isn't even ours. So, way of thinking of habits is using the habit loop, and that is, there's a cue that leads to a routine, and that routine gives you a reward. So even when you self-sabotage, there's a reward you're getting from it, and that reward is normally some sort of feeling of safety or comfort, of knowing that you at least know what's to come next. It's always that one thing that you know if you were to do, it would change your life. This could be waking up early. This could be eating healthier. This could be starting to create content. There's always that one thing that you know if you were to do it and stick to it, it will change your life. I am going to encourage you to use this habit loop to think about what is the habit loop that you're doing to self-sabotage yourself from not doing that one thing. And when you recognize that, you're going to use the eat the frog strategy to stop self-sabotaging. Tick off that one thing that you don't want to do first thing in the morning. One thing you don't want to do, or that annoying admin task that you know has to be done to get you to where you're trying to go. Do that thing first thing in the morning for the next 30 days. I know it can sound very conspiracy theorist to say that the school system has programmed us to be like this and this, that, and the other. I don't think it has to be a case where they're literally plotting how to keep us down, but just look at the history of the world. The school system and curriculum was designed around the Industrial Revolution. They were trying to make mass factory workers. We're not taught to lean into our uniqueness, to explore our individuality and really hone in on that, and that being what we should be focusing on working towards on a day-to-day basis, as opposed to getting the best grades or getting the best job. So the key to turning your 20s around is to realize that, but not to be overwhelmed by that fact, but actually be empowered by it. And to be empowered by this, you need to start designing your life intentionally, which I talk about in this video.